Coming up in the show today, whilst the notorious cat gunned for dodgy multi-million rand payouts with the Tembisa hospital extraction scandal, the SAPS, and even tried to pilot a luxury private airport terminal, it's now emerged his wife Tsakane landed a lucrative training tender from the city of Ekurhuleni almost overnight. None other than investigative journalist Wicks has all the details next.
So now on paper, at first glance, Bona Vista Learning Academy looks by its registration number to have existed since 2016. But when you take a closer look, it actually reveals that that company was called the Mokoko Grill, which we believe is a restaurant, and it spent most of its existence in that shape and form up until just weeks before the bid window closed on this tender. And that's where things become interesting, because Tsakane was appointed as the sole director of the entity. She replaced another man. The name was changed from the Mokoko Grill to the Bona Vista Learning Academy, and the address was changed from one in Bloemfontein to their mansion in the Midstream Estate.
In our trending topic, we wrap up what we know thus far regarding the latest Epstein files release and any reference the emails carried to South Africa. Finally, it's a major moment in time with, on this day in South African history, former President F.W. de Klerk announced the unbanning of the ANC and Tata Madiba's imminent release from prison.
New episodes of The Lead air Monday through Thursday at 7 p.m.
In Rauby's Pointless Braai quiz for today, our question is, which major retailer is now open its second Snoopy at Kuro Century City School in Cape Town? I'll give you the answer at the end of the show. You might get a big prize, you might just walk away with bragging rights instead. My name's Graeme Raubenheimer, this is The Lead, and this is the South African story. Moving to our top story today, well, if we're going to do business, let's keep it in the family, right? Well, the Matlalas appear to know this all too well. Here with the very latest in his exposés, investigative journalist Wicks. He's going to detail all the latest findings that he's uncovered on his desk. Thanks so much for your time, Jeff. I really do appreciate it. Not a week goes by without you spoiling us with another Lead exclusive.
Yeah, how's it, Graham? And yes, I mean, Mr. Matlala seems to be the gift that keeps on giving, but it's because he's such an important character that we must dive so deeply into his life and his business affairs.
Absolutely, and now we see that's very much a family affair. Tsakane Matlala, his wife, of course, also very much well known in the public eye, of course, flanking him in the dock. Let's remind our listeners first, Jeff, what does she stand accused of? And she's out on bail, right?
Yes, she's has her liberty at the cost of 20,000 rand, and she paid that on her first court appearance. And she's the criminal accused in her own right. I think she's facing somewhat of a stacked deck as it regards criminal charges. There's charges of fraud, money laundering, and defeating the ends of justice. And she's also potentially facing charges as an accessory after the fact for 3 botched assassinations. So, the charge sheet is looking fairly bloated for her, not in as much as it obviously is heavily slanted towards her husband.
Yeah. Okay. So the latest for News 24, you detail how in 2023 she bagged this it's not chump change, it's 3.7 million rand, this lucrative deal with the city of Ekurhuleni. What is this tender for, and how did she come about getting this?
So the tender itself is for a skills development and training program, which was obviously run out of the human resources portfolio at the Ekurhuleni Metro Municipality. And what it intended to do was, for a period of 3 years, to generate a panel of trainers and skills developers who would upskill the municipality's employees. And obviously Tsakane, through an entity we identified as Bona Vista Learning Academy, had an iron in the fire there, and she submitted and won a significant stake in that tender. And she's been paid 3.7 million rand to date. And I think it's worth noting for our listeners that her contract with the city is still active. It's active until June. And so technically, if the Ekurhuleni Metro Municipality wanted to secure her services, there would be no impediment in doing so. Other than that, she's arguably got her mind elsewhere now, trying to stave off all the criminal charges that she faces.
Look, she was, as you reveal in your reporting, by no means an early bidder in what is supposed to be a competitive bid process for any government or state tender in this country today. what can you tell us about the company she commandeered and retrofitted so conveniently to win this lucrative contract? And surely it's quite a massive undertaking. I mean, you would need some sort of history or track record to show that my business can do these sort of things. Did she have any of this?
Well, that's really the grist of our report today is to say it's not necessarily that she won the tender, it's more about how she won it. And when you look at companies and intellectual property records, as we do on a daily basis, you come across some logs in the history section, which is really just sort of a list of all the changes that have been made to that entity. So now on paper, at first glance, Bona Vista Learning Academy looks by its registration number to have existed since 2016. But when you take a closer look, it actually reveals that company was called the Mokoko Grill, which we believe is a restaurant, and it spent most of its existence in that shape and form up until just weeks before the bid window closed on this tender. And that's where things become interesting, because Tsakane Matlala was appointed as the sole director of the entity. She replaced another man. The name was changed from the Mokoko Grill to the Bona Vista Learning Academy, and the address was changed from one in Bloemfontein to their mansion in the Midstream estate. So in essence, what you have is this apparition of a learning academy, which is a transformation from a restaurant, which happened really within a matter of days and conveniently right before the bid window closed. And the difficulty for Tsakane Matlala is, stipulations of this bid meant she had to submit documentation. Amongst that was her financial statements for a period of 3 years, and that's to show the financial stability of the entity so that the city doesn't award a contract to a company that's essentially going to go under in 6 months. She would have also had to submit, testimonials in terms of her qualifications and experience for the past 3 years. Now, when it comes to the financials, anything that she submitted under the legitimate name of that registered entity would reflect the financial stability of the restaurant, not her training academy. And it beggars belief, or it's a hard question for me to answer as to what she would have put up in terms of her experience and prior dealings with the state. And, the inescapable conclusion is that the inescapable conclusion is that the process around the award of this tender requires some scrutiny, because if she was able to win it based on the fact that she was, only in control of this entity for mere weeks before she bid, that points to issues with the system.
What's that old adage, Jeff? If you can't take the heat in the kitchen, retrofit it to a learning academy? Yeah. I think that's the old adage, something like that.
Something along those lines.
This is a 3-year deal. You've already said this in the beginning. It's still active, according to the city of Ekurhuleni. What has the Metro Comms department told you about the level of services rendered thus far? They, as a municipal entity, happy with the Bona Vista Learning Academy's ability to carry out the tender thus far? Have they given you any sort of detail there? And of course, they've been working overtime as of late. They really, those spokespeople down at the city have quite a job ahead of them for the next couple of years, I think.
Yes, I think so. And I'm sure they're quite tired of us already. But I mean, in essence, the municipality's position is that there was no issues with the tender process. It was a competitive one, and it followed all the strictures and rigors that any other tender process would follow. Whether or not that's absolutely accurate remains to be seen, and it's something that we'll continue to investigate. But, Tsakane Matlala really did shape herself as someone who could be called upon to deliver any sort of training or qualification. And we know that from what the city has told us, because according to their responses, she was training city employees on how to operate a grader, on how to, do road markings, how to operate forklifts, all of this supposedly from her Midstream estate mansion. Again, more questions and answers in respect of this. And when you look at the greater picture of the Matlala clan, and it's been a point of focus of our investigation, is to say that Vusimuzi Cat Matlala is a man who is always, for as long as we've had him on our radar, someone who's targeted state procurement, whether it was at Tembisa Hospital where we first found him, or then at the SAPS. And now we know that his network extends maritally through his wife, and she too was trying to make herself a very wealthy woman on the back of public funds out of the Ekurhuleni Metro.
Yeah, and in your latest piece, I mean, you also share this Instagram reel featuring her and her daughter. I mean, you know, with a very nice set of wheels, a Rolls-Royce Wraith. I mean, those things are super expensive. She's only got the best fashion garb available. You know, it boggles my mind a little bit that, you know, you would show off such luxury at the extent of what we know in the context of everything thus far.
Yeah, well, I mean, they really do position themselves as the quintessential entrepreneurs because, I mean, that old journalism maxim of following the money is something we apply every day. And we can see the money is being paid into their accounts from, be it Tembisa Hospital or the SAPS or now the Ekurhuleni Metro. And we wanted to make certain as to what that cash was spent on. And, this was a pursuit that started when we were looking at Kat Matlala because we knew from his SAPS tender, at least, that he was being paid and then not paying his staff and not paying his suppliers. And then you contrast that against a wonderful life that they led. I mean, they would split their times they would split their time between two mansions in Pretoria. They had the best high-end fashion. Cosmetic surgery was paid for with state funds, arguably. So there was no shortage of money in this equation. And it seems to be a common trope within the Matlala clan is that, there are questions around how these contracts are secured, and then there's absolutely no question on how the money is spent.
I also thought quite interestingly, and I don't know if this is just something simple that happens for a lot of people who own businesses, but the CIPC registration details for Tsakane's business, in fact, lapsed, and she had to renew those details of this new Buona Vista Learning Academy during some period, but that only really came into effect sometime after, and that was during the course of this year. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. So any business owner will know that you need to file your annual financial statements with the CIPC and you need to pay your fees or you risk falling into a phase of deregistration. So what we found, again, from the same records was that Buona Vista Learning Academy fell into a phase of deregistration and it was only brought back up to compliance in January this year, so less than 3 weeks ago. What the CIPC information also tells us is really interesting because the fee structure is determined by your business's turnover. And for as long as Buona Vista or Makoko Grill, depending on which iteration you want to use, existed, they have declared an annual income of less than R1 million. So what's clear from this alone is that the 3.7 million rand payday for Buona Vista was its largest ever yet, and ever since it's been in existence.
Yeah, because anything after R1 million, right, you need to register for VAT, I think. Okay, and then meanwhile, all of this, we of course heard during the course of last week, Jeff, that via his defense team, the Cat now wants out of Ekurhuleni Supermax over in Kokstad in KwaZulu-Natal. He wants to be moved to another facility soonest. And during their court proceedings, we understand that the defense team, as well as prosecutors, they're sort of trying to find each other at the moment as to a new facility that can house the Cat. What is his legal team saying or claiming at this point regarding the day-to-day? I can't imagine he's got a couch in his cell and he's living the high life there.
No, I mean, Ekurhuleni Supermax is not a comfortable place, and not least for the people interred there. And his life will be 23 hours of a day spent in a cell and 1 hour of yard time to exercise, and that will be his day to day. And I think the issue raised by his attorneys is an important one. They have to travel several hours from Johannesburg to consult with him ahead of this criminal trial. And the prison system is not designed for inmates to be comfortable. But I think what we need to be cautious of is any sort of infringement on Vusimuzi Matlala's fair trial rights. This man, regardless of what anyone may feel about him, deserves a free trial so that this process is unimpeachable. And if he's guilty, he's made to account for it. And it's going to be difficult because what the Correctional Services Department is saying is that, we did a threat and risk analysis on this man and the move to Kokstad Supermax is completely justified. Whether or not that impedes his ability to speak to his lawyers as and when he prepares for his trial, that's up to them. And the door remains open for them to bring a High Court application for him to be moved. But as we sit here now, the status quo remains the same. He'll continue to be a temporary resident of KwaZulu-Natal up until the point that he's either convicted or sentenced, or his legal team, seeks relief from a higher court.
When are they both expected back in the dock?
The power couple will be back in the dock at the Johannesburg High Court on Friday.
We'll get an update then. Jeff, if you want to read his latest piece, still doing very, very well on the front page of News 24 today, from grill to gold, how Kat McClelland's wife scored 3.7 million rand Ekurhuleni deal. Read all about it. You can get further detail there about this business that she retrofitted just days ahead of the successful bid going through. You can make up your own mind about it and your own thoughts about it. I'm sure Jeff and the investigations team will continue to sleuth through the tranches of documents that they get their hands on, and to find a lot more detail about how all of these different scoring of deals comes together for this family that continues to live the high life. One behind bars, the other currently out on bail, both back in the dock very much soon. Jeff, thanks so much for your time on The Lead. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, G.
You're listening to the latest edition of The Lead on News 24 with Graeme Raubenheimer. If you've got an opinion on what you've heard so far, drop us a short voice note on our WhatsApp hotline. That's 072 562 3179. Trending topic.
To our trending topic, and the latest release of the Jeffrey Epstein files by the US Justice Department has quite a few references to South Africa. Here's what we know thus far. It emerged over the weekend that former President Jacob Zuma once held dinner with the late child sex offender and trafficker. Now, according to the correspondence we've read online, Zuma, who was in London in early 2010 for his very first state visit to the United Kingdom and then met with the late Queen Elizabeth II, in fact ate with Epstein and a Russian model named Vera at the Ritz Hotel one night. Now, a person named Mark Lloyd appeared to have acted as this go-between for Epstein and Zuma, and remarked following that meeting that they found Msholozi to be more impressive than they presumed prior. Lloyd also claimed that the model was quote-unquote magnificent. Jacob Zuma Foundation and MKMP Mzwanele Manyi has not denied that this meeting happened, but insists Zuma is not accused of doing anything wrong. Zuma's name's not the only one. A closer look at the emails between 2009 and 2014 reveals that correspondence about Cape Town comes up quite a lot. Epstein and a person named quote-unquote Daniel spoke about the quote-unquote potential of girls is huge for model scouting in the city. Now, Rob Hersoff and his wife's names also come up, with the entrepreneur telling News 24's Sia Tsapa over the weekend that he met Epstein at a cocktail party in New York, and Epstein's team thus kept his contact details in their ledgers. Now, Hersoff insists the story ends there. Emails also revealed that Epstein and company were closely following South African political developments for changes in both the ANC and EFF parties. Durban and Johannesburg come up in the letters too, but not nearly as much as Cape Town, which seems unsurprising to many of our News 24 readers in the comments section who cry foul over the city's organised crime levels. Any thoughts on this matter? Do you think it's a non-story? Do you think there's more to come? Drop us a comment below.
And finally,
ending off now with On This Day in South African History, the 2nd of February 1990, and what a historic day it is indeed. While former and the last apartheid state president F.W. de Klerk stunned Parliament at the time by announcing the unbanning of the ANC as well as the PAC and the SACP. He also confirmed Nelson Mandela would imminently be released from prison. A shock, but also a celebratory moment for many South Africans who were hoping for the end of apartheid. The late Anglican Archbishop Desmond Tutu even described it as a kind of quote-unquote second coming. It all came amid crippling sanctions, the apartheid state under economic strain, rolling states of emergency, and growing international isolation and sanctions on sport and culture. While South Africa was on this path to high-stakes negotiations and eventual democracy, though the years that followed were marked by political violence and deep uncertainty. De Klerk faced fierce resistance from within, but the move is widely seen as one that helped steer away from an imminent civil war scenario. Time now for Rauby's Pointless Braai quiz, and we asked which major retailer has now opened its second Snoopy at Kuro Century City School in Cape Town. Woolies. Yes, of course, Woolworths. This is their second official school tuck shop after setting up the very first, and I didn't know this, at Springfield Convent in Wynberg. Now, the swanky Woolies Snoopy is cashless, it's age and health conscious, and it's fully manned by its own in-house staff. Curo's Carry app can also be the go-between here, allowing parents to procure meals for their kids beforehand. As it stands, though, there are currently no cemented plans to roll out more Woolies tuck shops at Curo's schools across the country, but watch the space, you never know. Back in my day, I would save my R2 during the course of a week, hoping for a steak pie or a sausage roll. Wait, I still do that. That reporting's courtesy of News 24 Foods, Nolutando, Tsakane. And if this was your answer all along, you score absolutely nothing, except perhaps the quiet satisfaction of sounding very informed around the Braai place. And some say that's priceless indeed. How can we improve the lead now with more than 1 million listens and counting? Drop us your suggestions at thelead at 24.com. Otherwise, hit like, follow, and subscribe. That way you'll be notified of all of our editions dropping like clockwork Monday to Thursday at 7 p.m. Until our next discussion, my name's Graeme Raubenheimer, and so long as there's trusted news first, we'll always have the lead.